Yeah, it's like you're sitting there and there's people next to you and they say, you want to say, hey, I grew that. It's super cool actually, going somewhere and going to eat your produce that you grew and then brought there, and then there's fellow diners and they're just being there as a quiet person, and it's like, oh, what are they having? Oh yeah, pick that. Yeah, nice. It's absolutely cool.
This is The Producers. I'm Dani Valent. Welcome to the third collaboration between Deep in the Weeds Producers Podcast and AgriCultured, a festival which showcases and connects the produce and people of northern Tasmania, or Lutruwita as it's called in Aboriginal culture. This is a special part of the world with beautiful, fertile lands, true seasons and rich traditions. Our first podcast in this series was with Bet Rumble from Lone Goose Farms. She farms Muscovy ducks. Today, we're talking to Wouter Sels. Wouter farms the pretty, hilly country nestled in forest at Lorina, almost 2 hours west of Launceston. Born into a Belgian farming family, Wouter and his family live off-grid, feeding their family and supplying the community and a select group of chefs. It's isolated, but rich in connection.
My name is Wouter Sels, and we're in Lorina at our farm, Seven Springs Farm, and I predominantly grow vegetables. We have a bit of a more of like a holistic farm, I would say. So we grow a lot of the food we eat ourselves, including beans and wheat, and we have a bit of livestock, and we have quite a bit of forestry happening as well, a bit of agroforestry in the coming up, like widely spaced trees in a savanna sort of style. We also have our own nursery for the vegetables, and we actually have a lot of seeds, specialty seeds we save from quite a lot of our cultivars. So yeah, a bit of an all-round farm, and we're in a valley, but we're in a bit of a half bowl of a valley, like a valley that's eroded out a little bit into different terraces, say. So we are looking at lots of trees, and in amongst those trees you have hidden away more flat areas, and there's a lot of water around. We have a relatively high rainfall. Creeks generally run year-round. We have Seven Springs. Our farm is called Seven Springs Farm, so we actually have Seven Springs year-round, although they're a bit slow in summer, way too big in winter. And we're about 40 minutes away from the nearest town, which is Sheffield. Launceston takes us an hour and 45 minutes. And Hobart would be about 4.5 hours. So we have, there's the 5 of us, and we homeschool 3 kids, and they're 5, 9, and 10. And my partner is a vet. She goes to work a few days a week, and otherwise, we look after ourselves a bit. And we obviously, there's people who work here on the farm as well. There's a few people locally that come for a few days a week. And yes, that's how we get a few things done around the place.
Wouter was a farmer in Belgium, and now he's a farmer in Tasmania. Naturally, there's a love story. Yeah,
so I used to have a farm in Belgium. I started a little farm, a CSA farm, also very holistic. We had cows, very similar to here. And there I met Elise. She came as a woofer, which is like a volunteer who works on farms, generally traveling people. And we met, and some years later we decided I was going to move to Tasmania, where she already had property. And it seemed suitable enough to start a new adventure, and packed up all my stuff, including tractors and that sort of stuff, put it in shipping containers, and here I am, quite a few years later.
Seven Springs is built in nature, but it's also built by philosophy, or more accurately, a series of philosophies, approaches and ideas that are constantly tested, developed and reshaped by the environment and the seasons.
I don't really like to pinpoint a particular style of farming, but I think there's many good things in many things. Diversity is such a key thing to so many things. you could say biodynamics is probably, this is how I really started out back in Belgium, and it's still the founding sort of approach where a lot of support parts are in place for the farm. I think regenerative grazing, regenerative farming is a bit of a big word that I sort of feel that gets overused a bit, so I'm not keen to use it. Although if you look at it, the core of it, that is as well the intention to regenerate, to sequester more carbon on this parcel of land. But things like agroforestry is certainly very applicable. So it's a particular style is maybe a bit hard to pinpoint, but I think that probably sums it up a little bit. Self-sufficiency is certainly a big part of our life, has always been. This is why I started farming. I come from a long-standing vegetable growing family. We built the first greenhouses back in Belgium back in the late 1800s, before they were all blown down by some bombs in the First World War. I see myself a bit more like my grandparents, who had a vegetable farm as well, but they were, as it was pretty common in this up to the 60s, to look after a family a lot more, grow your own cereals, have your own livestock, maybe sell some milk, and make some money from the vegetables, and just have that part. Whilst the generation of my parents, they chucked out all the livestock and specialized and went mega in everything. Mega greenhouses, just very narrow selection of crops as well. And with all its detrimental effects to the world, I believe we had lots of benefits from it, but overall, I think we've degraded a lot of aspects of society and of life in general. So, yeah, I see that I'd like to do, as many people like to do, better than their parents, even though they did an amazing job. I think going back a little bit to a generation before, not necessarily with dropping a lot of things we've come to appreciate as quality of life and those sort of things, but just the more holistic approach, I think, is really important in a farm. I feel I see a lot of aspiring and young or new vegetable farms throw that concept out of the door very quickly and specialize too much. And it's just I don't think that's what we need to solve many of our world problems. We need to be efficient, and specialization is certainly good, but I think we mustn't forget the support parts, which is not necessarily a big moneymaker. It's not really good for our economy. It's not a big GDP sort of thing. However, it's a really essential part of sustaining a farm and a farm lifestyle. And I think it has the potential to keep corporate farming out of, as much as possible, out of our food production, because I think that's a really weak part of our food system. When it's just about the numbers and the numbers don't add up, a large corporation is going to say, well, it just doesn't add up. We shut it all down, and then a lot is shut down. Whilst if a small farm is shut down, it's only a small farm, and a small farm is more likely to stick around because it has more values than just financial values. Obviously, it's crucial and very important, but all the support does actually add up. It's maybe not a direct financial aspect. I think that's a big thing, and that's something that is a bit of a driver there too.
Some farms can seem like they're working against nature. Wouter is more about integration and participation. Looking
after ourselves and our surrounds in a as much as possible participatory with our environment and our food, and being in amongst it, not putting things in a box or in a cage and then being on the other side, not having just nature over there and agriculture here and living there, energy production or energy consumption. I think many things need to be more integrated, and I think participatory is a much more better word, or integrated.
Farming is never easy, but hopefully there are rewards. Wouter explains where the balance lies.
Yeah, mostly very good. Sometimes treacherous. It's a lot of work, and it can be hit a little bit with some bad parts, as in setbacks by wildlife or weather events. But also very rewarding that when we do put in, which we do a lot of sort of backup things like secondary water sources or lots of diversity in crops. You really have something to hold on to always. I think it's really important.
Wouter Sels uses some of the produce for his family and sells produce boxes to households. He also has direct relationships with a few restaurants. Here he explains his system of growing produce to order for chefs, prioritising flavour and sometimes making the arrangements a year or more in advance.
Yeah, so I obviously supply a few restaurants, not many actually. It's really just sort of 3 to 4, who 3 are really good customers and who I really sit down and try to make sure that they use as much as my produce and I grow a lot of the produce for them. So we try to forecast what they would like to order for the whole season, which is a bit of a job. So I'm coming to them once a year or maybe a few times a year to look at some spreadsheets and see, okay, how many of each would you like? What would you like? And then I go and pop that in a bit of a crop plan, and then I grow it. If it works, obviously, it's not always 100% successful. And it means that I don't have as much waste. I'm not just growing fancy specialty crops or just basic crops as well for the highest bidder or for the lowest bidder generally. And they know as well that they are able to source quality produce. This is the reason why they came to me in the first place, for flavors. And that way they can really be a bit more assured that they have a relatively easy supply of the vegetables or the produce they would like to have in the numbers they would like. Often it can be quite risky to plant a whole lot of things if you don't really know who's going to buy them. I'm not really tapped into a wholesale market either, so I don't really have an outlet for excess produce in that way, mind you. I do also go to farmers market in Launceston, and we do have a little CSA as well, like a little veggie box system. So I do like that diversity on that end as well, because things change as well. We can forecast a lot, but it's good to have a little bit of diversity in all directions, but that also includes in your sales and
Thinking in terms of 4 seasons can actually be a rather blunt instrument. Wouter explains the arcs of produce.
I think seasonality in its way that you have peaks for everything, where you have the best at a certain time. You can have a lot of things for a long time, but there is always the best period for something, and then it's can be really good. So when you're supplying lots of things for an extended period, so I'll do a bit of season extension as well, just to have things earlier or a bit later, or with storage or that sort of stuff. You can have things much longer, but there's definitely a significant peak of things. It really shows off in the quality. The visual looks can be a lot better. That sort of stuff.
When you talk to a chef like Massimo Mele, he goes misty-eyed when talking about Seven Springs produce. What is it that makes these veggies so good?
You kind of come to terms when lots of people say, oh, this is the best this or this is the best that. Not that it's necessarily that much better than anything else. I do think having good soil care goes a long way. Fertility building through different ways. Remineralization, I think it has to do something. So we've done a lot of remineralization, still ongoing, like enhanced rock weathering, also just good soil building with cover crops and grazing, having plant exudates there, lots of biological activity, proximity to more woody system. Like we have a lot of forests around. We're implementing those agroforestry systems. We have a very high organic matter on the place. I'm not a big waterer either, which I need to be careful. Obviously, when it gets too dry, it's no good. But I do let my plants work. We're not really looking after them in a way that a gardener might. It's we'll go and make those plants work and go deeper down. And I'm also using generally a lot of cultivars that are not very common. So I keep a few cultivars that are a bit special, also hard to import, generally because of fungicides and that sort of stuff. So I try to stay away from those things. And if I can't then get it, I might actually do a selection of them. So I keep some varieties going. I imagine it's a combination of the whole lot, because it would be hard to pinpoint it on one thing. I don't buy a lot of produce, so I'm not really able to tell the difference, I must admit, because I don't get to taste a lot of things. Although sometimes it is noticed. But yeah, I'm imagining it's something like that. Maybe a bit of freshness and that sort of stuff.
Wouter grows dozens of different lines of vegetables, and he's not allowed to have a favourite child. But if you ask him quietly, is there a product that he's especially fond of?
Yeah, because we grow actually a lot of different things. I'm inclined to think back about some of the items I keep varieties of, and then probably one is the Chimidarapa, which is a very simple, basic leafy green that this variety, I imagine no one else has that in Australia. Right now it's really difficult to import it because you need to have fungicide treatments treat it. Back when I initially imported it, it was still the laws in biosecurity laws weren't as strict on the Brassica rapa. So I think they do really amazing things with it, and it's something where I managed to grow nearly year-round for them, so it's a staple for them as well. And it's just a humble little green that grows quickly, and it's a Northern European version of a very traditional Italian vegetable. It's not quite the same, but it's very similar, and it's actually quite nice.
Wouter Sels is a passionate small farmer working Seven Springs with a close eye and deep personal investment in the health of the land. Why are small farms like this so important?
Small farms overall are more productive as far as their output per hectare of land. They're generally able to look after the soil and the environment better. They're a lot more invested in their produce because it's really their livelihood. It's I'm just comparing this, say, to a larger corporate farm. Say, it's only not only but primarily financial outcomes that matter, and when you're always just doing everything only solely for monetary gain, you really don't make the right decisions, particularly in a market where there's not a lot of money to go around. When you're riding on marginal returns, you can really cut corners, as a lot of agriculture does. So a smaller farm is less likely to do a lot of that. They will also have to do that, unfortunately, because it's just there's not so much money to go around for produce. However, because there's a lot more of their personal investment is a lot more in there, and their livelihood, and they live on this land generally, they really have a lot more at stake. Generally, they sell a lot more direct, so they're really facing people that eat their produce directly. It takes a lot more to not be doing a good job and then to sell something directly. It's not good for your mind if you're doing that. So lots of people are going to try to avoid that as much as possible within the constraints. Obviously, if there's no money going around, there's no money going around. but still they will gonna really feel bad about doing a bad job. And I think lots of small farms, it just adds to the food sovereignty, food safety. If we just have a small amount of farms with very few people working on there, we really, as a society, we really have ourselves in a precarious position when certain financial aspects turn, and particularly large farms are very, very dependent on cheap energy. Cheap energy, we've been replacing this labor for the past 50 to 70 years. We've replaced a lot of our labor with energy on our farms. We have made a slight increase in production quantity, certainly not in quality, but the amount of energy we are consuming today compared to, say, the 1960s is absolutely staggering, and it's way more than the caloric output of our systems that we have currently today, just because we want to subsidize labor with cheap energy, which we can, and that's the incentive for everybody, every single farmer, because labor is so much, energy is only so much. So just get yourself a bit of steel and just do the same thing. But there's a tremendous amount of energy, and well, there's only so much energy to go around, particularly coming at a point of peak where we're really realizing the detrimental effect of our fossil fuel energy, of our dinosaur energy. We're gonna have to change things around, because we will really fall without food in our world, and it's not really we shouldn't have to be without food, particularly if we make some right decisions. I think a lot of excessive meat consumption isn't really going to work either. We're going to really have to finally balance our excessive meat consumption together with plant production and less energy, more labor. So smaller farms automatically allow that to eventuate, because also, say, for successional reasons, small farms are just a lot easier to pass on in a succession, whether it's to family or totally new people. The required capital for purchasing a small farm is a lot more doable and more manageable with a group of people, say a CSA or something like a community supported agriculture, where a bunch of people are getting together to grow their food. The amount of capital required to take on a corporate farm, well, you need corporate money for that. This is high risk, and you need a lot of money for it, like significant amounts, because just the land price, plant and machinery, it's very inaccessible for succession. Only by another yet bigger corporate. I think recently here in Tasmania, it just happens everywhere all the time. Like corporate farms also go bust, or they maybe bust is a big word, but they're all just coming to the point where it's not really financially working, so we go in liquidation. But what about all the food that they produce? And luckily there's other bigger corporations that take it over, but it's a bit of a downward spiral in my opinion. So this is my answer to small farms is what we need.
The Sels aren't just farming here. They're creating an ecosystem that includes energy, water, nutrition, economics, and education.
Well, we see, firstly, we produce our own energy. So a lot of our energy is wood. So we cook with wood, we heat our house with wood, we make hot water with wood. We also have a solar system, which you saw we're doing little upgrades on that, with a battery bank, which we're off-grid. So firstly, we can't actually do anything apart from running a diesel generator, which we try not to do. And then we have a hydro installation as well. The timber, I think, is a very sustainable energy source for here, because we grow a lot of it, and so that's kind of quite carbon neutral. So for food, we grow wheat, so we make our own bread with that. We make pasta and those sort of things as well. It's also for our quite a bit of our protein. So we have chickens, and our laying mix is part wheat, and we grow some oats and barley to go in there as well. And grass is obviously a very important part for the hens as well. And then we have some goats for our milk, and we do also collaborate a little bit with a neighbor for cow's milk if our goats aren't producing milk. We grow a lot of our seeds. I try to do a lot of dual purpose things as well. So for instance, a lot of my vegetable bean seeds we also eat as a dry bean. So our runner beans, our butter beans, our green beans, our perennial beans, we also use them. So I grow enough of it, and then we have them as dried beans as well. What else do we do? We have quite a bit of stuff. Obviously, our seeds. I think the seeds is something that's so overseen on vegetable farms. It's such a I still spend a lot of money on seeds because I'm a bit picky about quality of seeds, and growing a number of things. I want good quality seeds. I don't want what I call backyard quality vegetable seeds. I need relatively high uniformity. I need to know that they're going to mature at the same time, so I don't have a harvest from, say, a cauliflower over 6 months or something, where occasionally one is sort of making a cauliflower and then the rest is doing nothing, and we're just wasting a lot of land. So I'm very picky with many things. So I'm always looking for higher quality things. So I'm definitely not shy on spending money at good seeds. But I also select. I have probably a good 30 or 40 of the cultivars I grow that I save seed from, generally spaced out in time, but a bit spaced out in space as well if there's too much of the same variety. This is something that has always excited me. Back from in Belgium, I was part of a farmer seeds saving group, which is still going and is actually thriving. Not so much here in Australia. It seems it's just another thing to do. In our house yard, we do a lot of preserving as well. Obviously, we have Bounty, so we rarely buy tomato sauce. We don't really buy pickles. Obviously, make our own bread from our wheat. We're still eating our own apples from our orchards from last autumn. Obviously, we have a cool room, which is nice to have a little bit part of the commercial. The commercial farm does allow us to sort of cross those things a little bit. We can put our apples in a cool storage because I've got a cool room full of other produce anyway, so it just goes in there. Same for the chestnuts. We do quite a few things with that. I'm not sure. There's quite a few other things, probably frozen berries and wine, and this. When you all read old literature, there's a few things that there have to be on a farm. You have to have a good forested land. You want to have a bit of a vineyard of some kind. Ideally, some olive trees. This is that's AgriCultured. I don't know if you ever heard of this book. It's a very old book. So I do like the variety there. Mind you, they're not as crucial. It's not really essential if one season we're not making any wine or so. It's just a fun thing to do, and for the kids as well. Homeschooling, I think it offers a lot of potential in their later lives. Elise was my partner. She was homeschooled. She only started going to school at 16, and she became a veterinarian. All her siblings did very well as well at school. Later careers. I think it's a nice way.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And what do you love about what you do?
I think it really challenges my mind. It's very complex. There's a lot of moving parts. I have people, I have plants, I have animals, lots of different little things. There's the environment. We have a very rocky property as well. So there's lots of resources around that prove both opportunities and challenges. I think it's really good for my mind. I think just having a very specialized farm would also be very engaging for my mind, but I really like the diversity. I rarely have a day where I'm doing the whole day the same thing. There's a lot of diversity, which is, I think it's healthy.
Life on Seven Springs Farm is a web of complex interactions, but it also feels somewhat simple with the noise of the city stripped away. What does Wouter love about what he does?
Having high ambitions in a farm, which needs to be moderated because it can be a downturn as well, but I think it really drives a lot of sustainability if it's not exaggerated, because it can go the opposite way as well. But I feel I see a lot of emerging farmers and established farms often as well, and I lack a vision for a great potential and to try to execute that as well, to get that diversity in there and to recognize that not everything is a financial return. It's obviously very tough as a small farm. There tends to be a little bit more leeway, it seems, in larger farms, but yeah, not just focusing on that financial, just having the whole and allowing support enterprises and putting if you want to put a capital value, if you want a dollar value to that, if you can add it to it, but just recognizing that it's there and it's really not to be forgotten. That a lot of people, emerging farmers, start out with a lot of good ideas and just dwindle down to the core of a specialization and seem to stick with that for a long time. I miss seeing the building up of those support enterprises over longer periods, and yeah, because they are actually really impactful, those support enterprises. Those are the things that I think really make the whole a lot more sustainable, a lot more regenerating. Sustainable is not enough, as you know. We've brought our world in such a pickle that we need to throw in everything that we can to regenerate. And I don't think high-tech solutions are the solution. I think it's just another way to try to fix a problem with another problem. I think down to the ground, small farms need to have high ambitions, but ideally, if they can find a way to stick with them, because many have them, but it's really hard to stick with them, have a way to get there. I'm not sure what the solution there always is. I can see why people stick to the specialization. No offense, I can see why, but some way to keep that bright light there of, okay, we can actually make a change in the world with our support enterprises.
Wouter Sels is living his truth. Seven Springs Farm offers an intentional way to grow as a family, as well as being a small farm that supplies nutritious produce to the community and restaurants, while looking after the land that supports it. Wouter is a long way from the greenhouses of Belgium, but very close to his own personal patch of paradise. This is The Producers, a Deep in the Weeds production. I'm Dani Valent. Stay tuned as we talk to some of Australia's best farmers, makers and growers. Follow us on Instagram at Producers Podcast or contact us via deepintheweeds.com.au.